If you are a senior planning to travel in 2026, there is one promise I need to make to you right away. The rules you relied on for years are no longer enough. New passport and travel policies taking effect in February 2026 are so strict that even experienced travelers are being denied at the airport with valid tickets in hand. Imagine arriving at security early, bags packed, family waiting on the other side only to be told you cannot board because of a rule you never knew existed. That exact situation is about to become far more common. Starting this year, airports, airlines, and immigration systems are switching to fully automated enforcement. No more verbal explanations, no more exceptions, no more last-minute fixes at the counter. If one small requirement is missing, the system will block you instantly, and the hardest part is this. Many of these changes specifically affect older travelers who have been flying the same way for decades. What worked in 2024 or 2025 may now cost you extra fees, long delays, or even a complete travel denial. Some travelers will be forced to pay new charges just to pass through security. Others will be refused boarding before they even reach the gate. International trips that once felt simple will now require digital authorizations approved days in advance. These are not possibilities or rumors. These are real finalized policies going live in February 2026. The purpose of this video is simple and very personal. I want to make sure you never experience the frustration, embarrassment, or financial loss of being turned away from a trip you plan carefully. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through every major change affecting seniors, explain exactly what documents you need, and show you how to avoid the most common mistakes. By the time we finish, you will know precisely how to travel in 2026 without stress, confusion, or surprises. And there is one particular new rule that can quietly cost you $90 every time you take a round-trip flight if you are not prepared. I'll explain that in detail in just a moment. Hi, I'm Timothy. My name is Timothy, and I focus on breaking down complicated travel and policy changes so everyday people, especially seniors, can understand them clearly and confidently. The world of air travel is changing faster than ever, and my goal is to make sure you never feel lost in the process. Today, I'm going to guide you through the biggest updates taking effect in February 2026, including new airport ID enforcement, digital entry requirements for international trips, airline policy shifts, and several hidden traps that can catch even the most careful traveler. Think of this as your personal preparation guide for the new era of travel. And let's begin with the change that will impact more American seniors than anything else this year, the new domestic airport ID rules. Beginning February 1st, 2026, the way you pass through airport security inside the United States is changing in a very serious way. For years, travelers heard about the real ID requirement, but rarely felt its full impact. Even after official deadlines passed, many airports still allowed people to fly using older, non-compliant driver's licenses. TSA officers often performed manual identity checks and waved travelers through with little more than a warning. That era of flexibility is officially over. In 2026, the rules are no longer suggestions. They are hard system-enforced requirements. From now on, if you arrive at a U.S. airport without a real ID-compliant license, a valid U.S. passport, or another federally approved form of identification, you will not simply be warned. You will be charged a new Confirm ID verification fee. The amount is $45 and it must be paid immediately at the airport before you are allowed to continue through security. This is not a deposit, it is not refundable, and it is not a one-time fix. The fee only covers a short verification window of 10 days. After that, the process must be repeated all over again. This is where many seniors are going to be caught completely off guard. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you live in Michigan and fly to Arizona to visit family for 2 weeks. You arrive at the airport using your old standard driver's license, not realizing it is no longer compliant. TSA allows you to travel, but only after you pay the $45 fee. You enjoy your trip, stay for 14 days, and then head back to the airport to fly home. At that point, your 10-day verification window has already expired. That means you must pay another $40 just to return home. Suddenly, a normal round-trip flight has quietly cost you an extra $90 for nothing more than using the wrong form of ID. and the cost is only part of the problem. Travelers who pay this fee are placed into a separate verification process that can add 20, 30, or even 40 minutes to their time at the airport. During busy travel seasons, that delay can easily turn into missed flights and unnecessary stress. The safest solution is very simple. If you do not yet have a real ID, the smartest option is to carry your U.S. passport whenever you fly domestically. A passport is fully accepted at every airport in the country and automatically exempts you from the new fee and the additional screening process. Many seniors assume a passport is only needed for international trips, but in 2026, it becomes one of the most valuable travel tools, even for flights inside America. Another option is to upgrade your state driver's license to a Real ID compliant version as soon as possible. Most states offer this through their motor vehicle departments, and it is far less expensive than paying repeated airport fees. The key message from TSA is very clear. The days of explaining your way through security are finished. From now on, your documents will speak for you, and if they are not correct, the system will not bend. This single change alone is going to surprise millions of travelers, especially older Americans who have been using the same ID for years without any problems. But domestic travel is only the beginning. If you plan to leave the United States in 2026, the requirements become even more complex and far less forgiving. International travel systems are being redesigned to remove human judgment almost completely. Decisions about whether you can board a plane are increasingly being made by computers long before you ever reach the airport. I'm going to explain those international changes next because they are just as important as the Real ID rules and in some cases even more strict. Before we move into those overseas requirements, I want to pause for just a moment. If what you're hearing right now is helping you understand these new travel rules more clearly, consider subscribing to Stay Connected for future updates like this. Policies are changing quickly in 2026, and my goal is to keep you informed in simple, straightforward language so you never have to worry about being surprised at the airport. Now, let's continue because one of the biggest upcoming changes involves anyone planning to visit the United Kingdom this year, and it is already causing serious problems for unprepared travelers. If your travel plans in 2026 include England, Scotland, Wales, or even just a short layover in a British airport, there is a brand new requirement you must understand clearly. It is called the United Kingdom Electronic Travel Authorization, or ETA, and beginning February 25, 2026, it becomes fully mandatory for almost all American travelers. In the past, U.S. citizens could simply book a ticket, show a valid passport at the airport, and board a flight to the UK with no extra paperwork. That simple process is disappearing. From now on, your passport alone is not enough. Before you are allowed to board a plane to the United Kingdom, you must have an approved digital authorization already linked to your passport. This system technically started earlier, but airlines were given a grace period to allow travelers to adjust. That grace period officially ends in February 2026. After that date, airline computers will automatically check for an approved ETA when your boarding pass is issued. If the authorization is not found in the system, the airline will not be able to print your boarding pass at all. And this rule applies even if the United Kingdom is not your final destination. For example, if you are flying from the United States to Italy with a connecting flight through London, you still must have an approved UK ETA before you ever leave home. Many seniors are assuming this is something they can handle at the airport counter or fill out quickly on travel day. That is not how the system works. The ETA must be completed in advance using the official UK government smartphone application. There is a small application fee, and while approvals are often quick, they are not guaranteed to be instant. Waiting until the last minute is one of the easiest ways to be denied boarding. Another common misunderstanding is believing that a travel agent or airline will automatically handle this step for you. They will not. The responsibility falls entirely on the traveler. This is a perfect example of how 2026 travel is shifting from human flexibility to strict digital compliance. No authorization means no boarding, no exceptions, and no refunds for missed flights. The safest strategy is to apply for the ETA as soon as your travel plans are confirmed. Even if your trip is months away, think of it as part of your ticket, just as important as your passport. Now, let's talk about continental Europe because major changes are happening there as well. In early 2026, the European Union is moving closer to full implementation of a new biometric entry-exit system. For decades, American travelers entering Europe simply handed over their passports to be stamped by an officer. That familiar process is being replaced by automated kiosks and digital tracking. When you arrive in most European countries, you will be directed to machines that collect facial scans and fingerprints before you are officially admitted. For younger travelers comfortable with technology, this may feel like a minor adjustment. For many seniors, however, it can be confusing and stressful. The kiosks require precise positioning, clear fingerprints, and careful attention to on-screen instructions. Mistakes can lead to delays or the need for additional screening. The most important change, though, is what happens behind the scenes. The new European system will automatically record the exact date you enter and the exact date you leave. Overstaying your allowed time, even by a single day, will no longer be overlooked. In the past, minor errors were often forgiven or corrected by border officers. Under the new system, those decisions are made by computers that do not offer leniency. A small mistake on one trip could create problems the next time you try to visit Europe. Seniors who like to spend extended periods abroad, perhaps visiting family or enjoying long vacations, must pay very close attention to these limits. There has also been a great deal of confusion online about another upcoming European requirement known as EDS. Many websites are already warning travelers that they need this authorization immediately. That information is misleading. EDS is expected to launch later in 2026, but it is not required at the beginning of the year. When it does become active, travelers over the age of 70 will be exempt from the application fee, though they will still need to complete the form. Any website asking seniors to pay an ETS fee before the official system is live should be treated with extreme caution. Unfortunately, new travel rules often create opportunities for scams, and older travelers are frequently targeted. The bigger picture here is very important to understand. International travel in 2026 is no longer controlled mainly by people standing behind counters. It is controlled by interconnected databases that check your documents, your authorizations, and your travel history automatically. By the time you reach the airport, the decision about whether you can fly has often already been made. Preparation must happen days or even weeks in advance. Showing up early and hoping for the best is no longer a reliable strategy. And while these international systems are changing rapidly, airlines themselves are also introducing major new policies this year that directly affect how seniors book seats, travel with mobility devices, and even receive refunds. Those airline changes are just as important as passport rules, and they are coming up next. Beyond passports and border controls, 2026 is also bringing some of the biggest airline policy changes in decades, and several of them directly affect senior travelers. One of the most noticeable shifts is happening with Southwest Airlines, a carrier many older Americans have trusted for years because of its simple and flexible system. For decades, Southwest was famous for its open seating policy. Passengers checked in early, boarded in groups, and chose any available seat. That familiar routine officially ends on January 27, 2026. From now on, Southwest will operate like most other major airlines with fully assigned seating. At first glance, this may sound like an improvement. Knowing your exact seat in advance can certainly feel more organized, but there are important trade-offs that seniors need to understand. Under the new system, premium seats near the front of the plane and seats with extra legroom will come with additional charges. For older travelers who prefer sitting closer to the door to reduce walking distances, this change can quietly increase the cost of every trip. What used to be available simply by checking in early will now require paying extra. Families traveling together may also find it more expensive to sit side by side. Another long-standing Southwest policy is changing as well. In the past, passengers who needed to purchase an extra seat for comfort or medical reasons could often receive a refund for that additional seat after the flight. Starting in 2026, that refund is no longer guaranteed. If a flight is completely full and both seats are occupied, the second seat may not be refunded at all. This shifts more financial responsibility onto the traveler and makes planning ahead more important than ever. There is also a safety-related rule that takes effect even earlier on January 11th, 2026, which is especially important for seniors who travel with mobility scooters or powered medical devices. New federal fire safety regulations limit the size of lithium-ion batteries allowed on airplanes. Any battery rated above 300 Wh will not be permitted on board Southwest flights. Many heavy-duty scooters and long-range mobility devices use batteries that exceed this limit. That means some seniors could arrive at the airport only to discover that their essential equipment cannot travel with them. The best way to avoid this nightmare scenario is to check the exact battery specifications of your device well before your trip. And if necessary, contact the manufacturer about travel-approved alternatives. These rules are not flexible, and airlines are required to enforce them strictly. Southwest is not the only airline making changes across the industry. Seating policies, baggage fees, and boarding procedures are becoming more structured and less forgiving. The general trend is very clear. Airlines are moving away from simple customer-friendly flexibility and towards systems that rely on advanced planning, digital compliance, and detailed rules. For travelers who stay informed and prepare early, flying can still be smooth and predictable. But for those relying on old habits and last-minute adjustments, 2026 could feel like a very expensive wake-up call. Now, after hearing about so many new restrictions, you might be wondering whether any of these changes actually benefit travelers. The good news is that 2026 is not only about tougher rules, it also brings some of the strongest passenger protections the United States has ever seen, especially when flights are delayed or plans fall apart. New federal regulations becoming fully enforceable this year require airlines to issue automatic cash refunds in situations where travelers previously had little power. If a domestic flight is delayed by 3 hours or more and you decide not to travel, the airline must now offer you a full refund to your original form of payment. For international flights, that threshold is 6 hours. In the past, airlines often pressured passengers to accept travel vouchers or credits instead of real money. Under the new rules, that practice is no longer allowed unless you specifically agree to it. If your plans are disrupted and you choose not to fly, you have the legal right to get your money back quickly and without complicated paperwork. This is a major improvement for seniors who travel on fixed budgets and cannot afford to have hundreds or thousands of dollars tied up in airline credits. There are also new protections for passengers with disabilities and mobility needs. If an airline changes aircraft and the replacement plane no longer meets your accessibility requirements, such as lacking an accessible restroom or appropriate seating, that change alone can qualify you for a refund, even if the flight is technically on time. These rules finally give older and disabled travelers real control and dignity when problems occur. Another positive development involves passport processing. The U.S. State Department is expanding its online passport renewal system in 2026. Eligible travelers will be able to renew their passports entirely online using digital photos and electronic payment without visiting a post office or mailing physical documents. This will make renewals faster and easier for many seniors. However, it is important to remember that this option only applies to standard renewals. First-time applicants and people whose passports have been expired for long periods will still need to complete the traditional in-person process. And regardless of how you renew, one rule remains absolutely critical. Many countries require your passport to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your travel date. Even if your passport has not technically expired, you can still be denied entry overseas if it does not meet that requirement. So, while 2026 introduces stricter enforcement in many areas, it also offers new rights and conveniences that travelers did not have before. The key is understanding both sides of the equation: tougher systems on one hand, stronger protections on the other. In the next part of this guide, I'm going to bring everything together with a simple, practical checklist designed specifically for seniors so you can travel this year with total confidence and zero surprises. Before we move into the final practical steps, let me pause for just a brief moment. If this information is helping you feel more prepared and less anxious about traveling in 2026, consider staying connected so you never miss important updates like these. Many of these rules continue to evolve throughout the year, and my goal is to keep explaining them in a simple, senior-friendly way. Sharing this kind of knowledge with friends or family who travel can also save someone you care about from a stressful or expensive mistake. Now, let's bring everything you've learned so far into a clear, easy to follow plan. With so many new policies arriving at the same time, the smartest way to protect yourself is to think in terms of a personal travel checklist. Preparation in 2026 is not about luck or hoping things work out. It is about making sure every small detail is handled before you ever leave home. The first and most important step is to confirm your identification. Look at your driver's license right now and check whether it is real ID compliant. If it does not have the required federal marking, plan to upgrade it as soon as possible. If upgrading is difficult or time-consuming, make a habit of carrying your U.S. passport whenever you fly domestically. That single document can save you fees, delays, and unnecessary headaches at the airport. Next, think carefully about any international travel you may have planned. If your trip involves the United Kingdom in any way, even as a short connection, apply for the UK electronic travel authorization well in advance. Do not wait until the week of travel and never assume the airline will handle it for you. Make sure the approval is confirmed and properly linked to the exact passport you will be using. For trips to Europe, keep close track of how long you are allowed to stay and mark those dates on a calendar. The new biometric systems will not forgive accidental overstays, so plan your return flights carefully and leave a small buffer whenever possible. Airline policies should also be reviewed before every trip. If you fly Southwest Airlines, remember that the open seating system is gone. Check seat options at the time of booking, and decide whether paying for a preferred location makes sense for your comfort and mobility needs. If you require an additional seat for medical reasons, understand that refunds are no longer guaranteed and budget accordingly. Seniors who travel with mobility scooters, wheelchairs, or other powered devices should verify battery limits long before arriving at the airport. Look up the WOWR rating of your equipment and contact the airline if you have any doubts. A few minutes of research at home can prevent a heartbreaking situation at check-in. It is also wise to stay organized with your important documents. Keep printed copies of reservations, authorizations, and travel insurance information, even if everything is stored digitally on your phone. Technology can fail, and having physical backups gives you confidence and control. Arrive at the airport earlier than you used to, especially during the first months of these new rules. Extra time is one of the simplest ways to reduce stress in an environment that is becoming more automated and less flexible. Finally, stay aware of your rights as a passenger. If a flight is delayed beyond the legal limits and you choose not to travel, remember that you are entitled to a real cash refund. If an aircraft change affects your accessibility needs, you have the right to reconsider the trip without being penalized. These protections exist to support you, but they only help if you know about them and speak up when necessary. Travel in 2026 may feel more complicated than it used to be, but it does not have to be overwhelming. The system is stricter, yes, but it is also more predictable. When you follow the rules, complete the digital steps early, and double-check your documents, flying can still be smooth, comfortable, and enjoyable. The biggest problems this year will not happen to people who are uninformed. They will happen to people who assume nothing has changed. And by watching this, you are already ahead of the vast majority of travelers. In the final part of this guide, I want to leave you with a simple mindset that will make every trip easier in 2026, along with a quick recap of the most critical points to remember before your next journey. The most important shift to understand about travel in 2026 is not just the new rules themselves, but the new mindset required to navigate them. For many years, air travel allowed a certain amount of flexibility. If a document was slightly outdated or a form was missing, a helpful airline agent could sometimes make an exception. If a traveler arrived a little unprepared, there was usually a way to fix things at the counter. That culture is fading quickly. The modern travel system is built on automation, databases, and digital approvals that leave very little room for last-minute solutions. In this new environment, persuasion no longer matters. Explanations no longer matter. Only preparation matters. This does not mean travel has become impossible or unfriendly. It simply means the responsibility has shifted more heavily onto the traveler. The key to stress-free trips in 2026 is learning to plan earlier and verify more carefully than before. Instead of assuming your old routine will still work, Treat every journey as if it requires a fresh check of the rules. Confirm your identification well in advance. Make sure your passport has plenty of validity left. Complete any required digital authorizations days or weeks before your departure. Review airline policies every time you book a flight. These small habits will protect you from nearly every problem we have discussed. It is also helpful to approach airports with realistic expectations. Lines may be longer. Technology may feel confusing at times. Processes that used to be simple may now involve extra steps. Giving yourself additional time and staying patient with the system will make the experience far smoother. Remember that these changes are designed to increase security and accuracy, not to make life difficult for seniors. When you understand the system, you can move through it confidently, just like any other traveler. Let's finish with a quick, clear recap of the most critical points you should take away from this guide. Starting February 1st, 2026, domestic travelers without a real ID or passport can be charged a $45 TSA verification fee, and that fee is only valid for 10 days. Carrying a passport for domestic flights is the easiest way to avoid that cost. For trips to the United Kingdom, an approved electronic travel authorization becomes mandatory on February 25th, 2026, and without it, you will not be allowed to board your flight. In Europe, new biometric entry systems will strictly track your stay, making even small overstays risky. Airlines, especially Southwest, are introducing assigned seating, new refund policies, and tighter rules for mobility device batteries.